To finish up with our life function notes.
I think I had a dream about science.
What's today's day?
I don't really remember
It's
that.
the 23rd.
Was it at Mr. Jura's grade
Something.
All right, so we're going to continue through our various life functions. We left off on transport. So transport is the absorption and the movement of materials around within an organism. The living things have to obtain various substances from their environment. And then once those substances are inside of the organism, they need to be moved around in some ways. Okay? So absorption is the taking in of the materials. Through the cell membrane. And some examples of substances that need to enter the cell: water, oxygen, carbon dioxide, food molecules, lots of different things. And then once they are inside of the organism, they need to be distributed, moved to various organelles or various parts of the living organism. And that's called the distribution of material. Now, in a simple unicellular organism, something like an amoeba, a bacteria, it's basically one cell, and so that material moves through the cytoplasm, through the ER, to move within the cell. It's fairly simple. But in a larger multicellular organism, there are special structures, generally, that help to move substances around within that organism. Okay? Things need to be transported. And that happens through, for example, veins and arteries in some organisms. Xylem and phloem in plants. These are the vascular tissues that move water, move carbohydrates around the plant. So there are specialized organs that help with transport in multicellular organisms. Another of the life functions is respiration. And we learned about that in 7th grade. It's a process which provides energy for the cell, energy for the living thing, the organism.
That's a big word, biochemical.
And so remember, respiration, cellular respiration is what we often will call it, is the chemical process that takes place within cells, within the mitochondria. Which is different from when we talk about respiration, which is also used sometimes to mean breathing in and out. Respiration uses glucose, C6H12O6, as its sort of energy source. And then, depending on the type of respiration, often oxygen is involved. That's called aerobic respiration. But there are times when oxygen is not available. And organisms can still release ATP from glucose using other means, other chemical means, which is called anaerobic respiration. And bacteria often go through anaerobic respiration, or yeast, or even our own muscle cells. Once they run out of oxygen, if we overwhelm our cells' ability to be provided oxygen, then they can switch to anaerobic respiration to continue to get some ATP, but it results in the buildup of waste products like lactic acid, which makes our muscles burn and makes them feel tired. Caleb?
Does that have anything to do with like the exercise?
Not really. Not really. I mean, we generally talk about you're doing some sort of aerobic exercise if you're breathing hard and using a lot of oxygen. So they are related, but they don't really, not very closely. And so, Chad, in your notes, just a little flow chart showing what happens. When does aerobic respiration happens versus anaerobic? Because aerobic respiration produces more ATP. It's often the more efficient way of getting energy. but sometimes that oxygen is not available, and other means of respiration need to take place, which would be fermentation or lactate fermentation. These are types of anaerobic respiration. We'll learn more about those as we move on. Excretion. Excretion is the removal of waste products, metabolic waste products, the waste of various chemical reactions taking place in our body. And there's several substances that need to be removed from our body through excretion. Things like water, which we remove via sweat glands, our kidneys, and our lungs. Urea is a nitrogen-based compound. It's excreted by our kidneys and also our sweat glands. And carbon dioxide, which is the byproduct of respiration. These are all various means we have, are various substances that need to be removed through excretion. Synthesis. What does the term synthesis mean? To synthesize something.
It's not real.
Photosynthesis. Grace?
Create?
Yeah, it means to make something, to build something. In biology, synthesis is the building of large molecules from smaller molecules. And this happens all the time. We constantly need to build up large molecules from the simple compounds that are broken down in digestion to produce new cells, to grow cells larger, to repair cells, to create products for secretion like hormones and enzymes and oils and waxes. All of these are larger molecules, and they are created through various chemical reactions, regulated by enzymes. They take simple molecules and put them together to form larger molecules. Regulation is an important life function. It means to monitor conditions, to control and coordinate life activities. And this is important for maintaining of homeostasis, even if external conditions change. Homeostasis, as we talked about, is the maintenance of a stable internal environment. We have here a couple examples of regulation taking place within a person. So blood sugar is a great example to think about regulation and how that works. So we look and start here. If our blood glucose levels rise because you ate a glazed donut for breakfast, right? As that glazed donut is broken down through digestion, the sugars in that glazed donut are released into your bloodstream. They're absorbed into your bloodstream after digestion. Right? That high glucose level, it's detected in our pancreas. Our pancreas is constantly monitoring our blood sugar. Once it realizes that our blood glucose level has increased, okay, it starts this regulation, produces insulin. Okay? Insulin is produced in the pancreas but travels throughout all of our body and our bloodstream. Okay? And when it gets to our body cells, when it gets to our liver, it tells that, okay, too much glucose in the blood, you need to take some in and store it away. And they do. And then our blood glucose levels drop back down to a normal point. Well, the opposite also happens. Okay? If our blood glucose level drops, say you didn't eat a good lunch, you didn't have a snack after school and you had to go to soccer practice, and your blood glucose level starts to drop. Okay? Your pancreas, again, is monitoring this. Okay, and it releases, when it realizes you have low blood sugar, it releases another hormone, glucagon. Glucagon goes into your bloodstream, travels throughout your body. And what glucagon does, it does the opposite. It tells your cells, it tells your liver, okay, well, our blood sugar is too low. Some of that glucose that was stored away, release it into the blood. Bring our blood sugar level back. And it does. Our liver breaks down glycogen, releases the glucose into the blood, and our blood sugar level comes up. So we have this constant balance. We can bring it down using insulin. We can bring it up using glucagon to keep it at the proper level. Body temperature works in the same way. We're constantly monitoring our body temperature. Okay, as our body temperature rises, our brain, receptors in our brain monitor it. Okay, and then they help to regulate. They make us sweat, okay, and that cools our body down. And when we get cold, receptors monitor that, cause us to shiver, raising our body temperature. And there's other means as well. So this is all about regulation, keeping relatively stable conditions, keeping healthy conditions within our body. Growth. Growth is an increase in the number of cells and the size of cells. Single-celled organisms grow. Multicellular organisms grow. And they grow using the products of synthesis. You need to grow. You need to build up molecules to provide that growth. And part of that is this idea of assimilation. Assimilation is taking material we've digested, foods that we've eaten, and actually incorporating it into new body tissue. So if you had an omelet for breakfast this morning, you're breaking down some of those proteins in the eggs and into amino acids, and you're absorbing them into your blood. Eventually, some of those amino acids will be reconfigured and synthesized into new muscle tissue. And so you would have incorporated the amino acids that were present in the eggs that you ate are now part of your body. They're part of your muscle tissue. It's been assimilated, incorporated into our body. Our cells are constantly digesting material and synthesizing new molecules to maintain homeostasis, to keep us healthy. And then there's reproduction. Reproduction is the production of new individuals.
Why do you have to have it turtle?
So here we have, obviously, reproduction is necessary for the survival of a species, but not necessary for the survival of an individual. An individual can survive without reproducing, but it is necessary for the survival of the species. Without reproduction, we have extinction. So, single-celled organisms
So weird.
reproduce through cell division, and multicellular organisms, such as these turtles, also reproduce.
Turtles, I don't want to see those.
Sorry.
I thought turtles
If
were
the turtle picture is too awkward for you, you can cover it up. That's all right.
I mean,
But it is a part of
they had these huge shells on them.
part of natural life. Okay, we're not going to get into the mechanics of turtle reproduction right now. That is sorry, tortoises. That is a topic for another time and place.
So are we gonna have like a lab on it?
We are not going to have a lab on turtle reproduction. All right, any questions about any of our life functions except for reproduction? No more questions?
I have a question. I have a reproduction.
Why? Just why?
All right. So those are our notes on life functions.